Leave It To Beaver looked perfect. Neat house, smiling faces, a lesson at the end. America loved it. Ratings climbed. Reruns kept it alive. Later, the movie brought the story back to theaters and new fans. But behind that sunny picture were problems the producers did not want you to know. Tough choices on set, cast pressures, a script that pushed the line. One episode caused real trouble and whispers in the studio halls. Some fixes were quick, some secrets lasted for years. The show stayed clean on screen, but the truth was messy. Join us as we take a closer look at the show, the cast, the backstage drama, and the secrets the producers hoped you'd never see. The boy who captured America's heart. Leave It To Beaver was more than a simple family show. It was a reflection of suburban America during the 1950s and early 1960s. The story followed young Theodore, the Beaver Cleaver, played by Jerry Matz, as he navigated the ups and downs of childhood with his family and friends. The show had a way of capturing what it truly felt like to grow up in a middle-class home during that time. Beaver was innocent, curious, and sometimes got into trouble, but that's exactly what made him so relatable. He wasn't a perfect child, and that honesty made him America's boy. As the show progressed, we saw his attitude toward girls change from dislike to curiosity. He even developed crushes on his teachers, Miss Canfield and Miss Landers. Every episode explored something different: school, home, or his neighborhood, showing how one boy's small adventures could tell the story of an entire generation. Beaver's world was the world of every little boy dreaming big in post-war America. It's no surprise that even decades later, audiences still look back on this show with a warm sense of nostalgia. But behind the charm and laughter, there were some surprising stories about how the cast came together and how luck played a big part in shaping this beloved show, the honest audition that changed everything. Jerry Mathers didn't get his role the usual way. Most kids might try to impress directors with enthusiasm, but Mathers did the opposite, and it worked. At his audition, he showed up wearing his Cub Scout uniform because he had a meeting right afterward. When asked if he was excited for the part, he said honestly that he would rather be at his Cub Scout meeting than auditioning. Instead of seeing this as disrespect, the producers, Joe Connolly and Bob Mosher, saw a spark of honesty they couldn't ignore. That simple truthfulness became the reason they hired him. His natural behavior was exactly what they wanted, a boy who could just be himself on screen. Before that, Mathers had already been in commercials and small movie roles, but Beaver would become the defining role of his life. His charm came from being real, not rehearsed. And his story didn't start in Hollywood, but somewhere much more ordinary. A shopping trip with his mom that changed everything. As it turns out, fate sometimes finds you in the most unexpected places. And for Jerry Matz, it happened at a mall when he was just 2 years old. From lifeguard to big brother. Long before Tony Dow became the dependable big brother, Wally Clever, he was living a completely different life. Unlike Matz, he had no acting experience at all. In fact, Dow was a trained athlete and lifeguard who got discovered almost by chance. Someone noticed his good looks and confidence at the pool, and before he knew it, he was on one of the most popular shows in America. What makes his story even more fascinating is that this wasn't his only talent. Dow was also a diving champion who competed in the Junior Olympics. He was young, determined, and used to pushing himself to be the best. That same discipline helped him transition into acting with ease. Talent comes in all forms, they say, and Dow proved that to be true. Going from saving lives in the pool to acting in front of millions, he carried his hard-working spirit everywhere he went. And although it was his first time acting, you would never guess it from watching him on screen. His natural chemistry with Mathers helped make their brotherly bond one of the most believable relationships in TV history. But even as their fame grew, the people behind the scenes knew how dangerous fame could be for young stars. And they took an unusual step to keep them grounded. Pearls, high heels, and life lessons behind the scenes. As the cameras rolled and America fell in love with the Clever family, real stories unfolded behind the curtain's back. She proved that she still had it. That most viewers never knew. Producers asked the young stars Jerry Matz and Tony Dow not to watch the show. They believed watching themselves might make the boys develop egos. Tony Dow later recalled, The producers, who were the writers, asked us not to watch it. They didn't want us to get a big head. It was their way of keeping the kids humble, and it worked. While the boys were learning discipline on set, Barbara Billingsley, who played June Cleaver, was mastering the art of hiding a personal secret. Her elegant pearls weren't just a fashion statement. They covered a hollow spot on her neck, left by surgery. Even when she wasn't filming Leave It To Beaver, she wore pearls or scarves to conceal the scar. Yet, some viewers criticized her wardrobe, assuming she was trying too hard to appear perfect. Little did they know there was a reason behind her look. And while Barbara handled criticism with grace, there was another quiet challenge she faced: her growing sons. As Jerry and Tony grew taller over the years, producers asked her to wear high heels to keep the motherly height difference on screen. It was their small way of maintaining the family illusion. Meanwhile, Hugh Beaumont, who played Ward Cleaver, brought his own lessons from real life to the show. Before acting, he was an ordained minister who taught moral values from the pulpit. Now he was doing the same thing, but through television. His calm, fatherly advice on screen came naturally because he had spent years guiding people in real life. Every lesson Ward gave his sons felt sincere because Beaumont truly believed in those words. Together, this cast created one of the most wholesome and timeless shows on television. One built on honesty, heart, and a little bit of real-life experience behind every line. June Cleaver's hidden struggles on screen. June Cleaver always looked flawless on Leave It To Beaver. Her neat dresses, her gentle tone, and even her heels made her the picture of the perfect 1950s mother. But behind that perfect image was a funny truth. June wasn't wearing heels to look glamorous. She wore them because her sons kept growing taller each season. The producers didn't want her to look shorter than Wally and Beaver, so they asked her to wear high heels around the house. Imagine cooking, cleaning, and parenting, all while standing in heels for hours. At the start of the show, she wore flats. But by the end of the 6 seasons, her heels were higher than ever. It wasn't about style. It was about keeping up the illusion that June was always in charge. She was, after all, the matriarch. The producers wanted to show her as a strong, elegant mother who stood above the boys, both literally and figuratively. It's funny to think about now. Sons growing taller than their mother is natural. But back then, television had to maintain an image. And while June smiled through it all, her on-screen husband, Ward Cleaver, had his own story behind that calm, fatherly face, one that wasn't as happy as it looked. Ward Cleaver's real-life conflicts. Before becoming America's favorite TV dad, Hugh Beaumont was a minister. He spent Sundays teaching moral lessons and talking about what was right and wrong in life. Acting wasn't his original dream. He turned to it simply to make a living. His deep voice and calm manner made him perfect for the role of Ward Cleaver. But his personal life behind the camera wasn't easy. Beaumont lived in Minnesota and had to travel to Los Angeles to film the show. During one of those trips, tragedy struck. His family was driving to meet him when they got into a terrible car accident. The crash claimed the life of his mother-in-law, leaving Beaumont filled with regret for taking the job in the first place. It was a painful memory that stayed with him. Even though he played a loving and wise father on TV, deep down, he struggled with his decision to join the show. He was also frustrated with how the fame affected his career. Like many of his castmates, he became typecast, meaning people only saw him as Ward Cleaver. No matter how hard he tried, Hollywood couldn't picture him as anyone else. He was also unhappy about always playing second to the young stars Jerry Matz and Tony Dow. But Beaumont didn't let that bitterness show. He stayed professional, and as time went on, he found new ways to express himself creatively by writing and directing episodes of the very show that caused him so much inner conflict. Stories that came from real life. Hugh Beaumont wasn't just acting. He was also helping shape the stories people loved. He wrote and directed several episodes, including one called Family Scrapbook. In it, June finds an old scrapbook while cleaning, and the family sits together, reminiscing about their memories. It was a sweet way to look back at the show's history. But the truth is, almost every episode had roots in real life. According to Jerry Matz, producer Joe Connolly kept notebooks filled with stories from his own childhood and things his kids told him. Those stories became the heart of Leave It to Beaver. They were funny, touching, and sometimes embarrassing, just like real life. That's why people connected to it so deeply. And it wasn't just the stories that made it special. Even the characters evolved in unexpected ways. Take Eddie Haskell, for example. He was supposed to appear in only one episode, but actor Ken Osmond's natural charm and chemistry with the cast impressed the writers so much that they kept him for the entire 6 seasons. That's the kind of magic that can't be planned. And behind that magic was an idea no one expected to work. A family show told through the eyes of a child. A show that reflected real people. Most TV shows back then were told from the parents' perspective. But Leave It to Beaver flipped the script. The show focused on how children saw the world, their mistakes, their curiosity, and their emotions. That's what made it so unique. Parents could watch it and understand their kids a little better. Meanwhile, kids saw themselves in Beaver's innocent adventures. And while the show looked picture-perfect on screen, real life for the actors wasn't always so neat. Barbara Billingsley, who played June, lived a very different life off-screen. She wasn't a housewife. She was a single mother raising 2 children after her husband passed away. Her life was full of challenges that her TV character never had to face, but that's what made her performance even more inspiring. She took her struggles and turned them into strength. Her son, Glenn Billingsley, once said she was every bit as nurturing, classy, and lovely as June Cleaver. Barbara admitted that the line between her real self and her character sometimes blurred. I think what happens, she said, is that the writers start writing about you as well as the character they created. So you become sort of all mixed up. Acting can do that to people. It can. Make them live 2 lives at once. One for the camera and one in the real world.